Leveling a pond. This is a bit of a funny one, as my straight up answer is water finds its own level, therefore it's impossible to have a pond that isn't level. However, I still get asked about it all the time, and it seems people are concerned with setting the levels during the digging stage. So I thought I'd do a quick video giving some tips on how you can make sure your shelf levels are correct, and then setting the final level of the pond. And I'll talk a little on the overflows as well. If you don't already know me, my name is Kev, and the aim of my channel is to help people build and maintain their ponds without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, you might like to subscribe and visit my website ozponds.com. So it seems that most people are having trouble with this if they're building an ecosystem style pond. This is my favourite type of pond. It has different depths, it has rock and pebble, and plants. More often than not, the pond is lined with an EPDM liner, but it's made to look natural. And the idea is to create a vibrant ecosystem for all kinds of life, not just aquatic animals. If you were building a dedicated fish pond with straight edges, no shells, and no rock and pebble, leveling's pretty easy, as you simply dig your hole, place in your liner, and you start filling it up with water. As the water fills, you can use the spoils of dirt from the hole you dig to contour the surrounding area and set your final water level. You might just like to use a spirit level to check the base of the pond is relatively level, or maybe have a slight slope to one side so you know that this is where sediments will accumulate for later removal. When you're digging a pond with shells, it's not too much different. I tend to start by digging my first level. If the ground is sloped, I'll pile most of the excavated dirt onto that low side. Then I'll use a spirit level to level the first shelf, just moving the level along the shelf as I dig. Once the first shelf is level, it's simple. We just excavate down to the second shelf. Now you can just use the depth as your guide. So if my second shelf is 30 centimeters or a foot deeper than my first shelf, I simply dig down another 30 centimeters, right around. Again, I'll use the spirit level to check that I'm level right around on this shelf, then I repeat the process on the third shelf. This is generally my final depth, as I like to have 3 different depths regardless of how deep the pond is, but that's just personal preference and you can do whatever you prefer. Before I add in a liner and an underlayment, I just make sure that the shelves are level and fine tune if necessary. You can use a level on a piece of straight framing timber to check the levels from one side of the pond to the other, or you could set up some string lines, or you could just get 2 bottles, join them together with some hose, and fill them to the same level. You can mark the equal level on the bottles, and then move around the pond, checking that everything matches up. Me personally, I don't like things too complicated, so I just set the levels of the shelves, and I'll set the final water level right at the end when the pond is mostly full of water. Generally, when you're finishing off the edges of the pond, you're moving around a lot of dirt anyway, so that's when I finalize the finished level of the water. I obviously already have a rough idea because I know that my first shelf is level. So that's just how I do it, and it worked for me on my dream pond, which is about 12 meters across. That's about 39 feet for my American friends. Now, if you were building a really big pond, you should probably just hire a laser or a rotating level. It's going to make life easier, and it's not going to add a significant amount of money to what's already probably a significant outlay of coin, as it is. So while I'm working on the edges and setting the final level of the pond, I'll consider adding in an overflow. I like to position my overflow near my skimmer or intake bay. This is where the pumps are positioned, and so this is the area where water is drawn to, but more importantly, where debris is drawn to. So when the pond is overflowing, I still want the water and the debris being pulled into this area. An overflowing pond is nature giving you a helping hand with the free water change, and we may as well let it flush out some of that surface debris as well. So the overflow is just an area where I purposely have the liner lower than everywhere else. I'll link a video that goes into more details on overflows if you're interested. Next, obviously this overflow is what sets the final level of the pond, and that's why I prefer to be doing all this with the pond mostly full. I can see exactly how it's all going to work in real life. The rest of the liner I like to have about 10 to 15 centimeters above the overflow point. That's about 6 inches. But this can also vary from pond to pond and the size of the rock you're using to edge the pond. Obviously, the higher you can have the liner, the better. The most common cause of a leak in a pond isn't a hole in the liner, it's a low edge. Larger rocks on the edges can make it easier to have a higher liner that's well hidden. In areas where I need to use pebble, I find it harder to conceal the liner while keeping it high, unless you use loads of pebble, but over time these are often areas where plants will grow and conceal the top of the liner, as well as the pebble, which can be expensive and hence why I don't want to waste it unnecessarily. Anyway, that's how I go about excavating my ponds. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward, so I don't really know how useful this video is. But if it was helpful, please give the thumbs up button a tickle. Thanks for watching. See ya.